Welcome once again to the Old Kyle Report, and of course I'm your host Chuck Lee, and we're coming to you live from the beautiful tire factory here in Eau Claire, where Fred and many of his comrades built tires for many years.
I didn't build tires.
And boy, we're glad to have you with us on this wintry February, excuse me. It's February the 10th, 1997, on the old clock on the wall there. All right. You know, as I was coming down here, I went in one of those potholes, and as I was down in the pothole there digging my way out, I ran into two Chinamen, and they were carrying off Elvis's coffin. You know what, Fred? Those are deep potholes.
Is that right?
Yeah. Well, anyway, as you know, we like to tell people what happened on this date in history, and boy, oh boy, did a lot happen on this date in history. And Fred, since you're the only one with me tonight here, you're going to have to answer this question.
I will, huh?
And this, to you, this probably seems like yesterday. It was only 150 years ago, on February 11th, 1847, one of the most prolific inventors in the world was born in Milan, Ohio. Who was it?
Edison.
That's right, Thomas Alva Edison. Born February 11th, 1847, 150 years ago tomorrow, Freddie. And of course he invented many things, including the light bulb. And he failed over 10,000 times before he invented the light bulb. You know, instead of giving up after 5,000 times, he just said, that's 5,000 ways that I know don't work, so I don't have to go back and check them. And 5,000, 10,000 more later, he finally invented it. And because of that, Fred, we don't have to live by candlelight or oil lamps. Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
All right, Freddie. And finally, 1945, President Roosevelt, British Prime Minister Winston Churchill, and this Soviet leader signed the Yalta Agreement during World War II.
What's that stuff?
That's what I'm asking you. Who was the Soviet leader that met with Winston Churchill and President Roosevelt during the World War II?
That was Stalin.
Yeah, Stalin. You know what that stands for in Russian? Steel. Joseph Stalin. And boy, I'll tell you, that guy was a bloodthirsty, murdering SOB, Fred. He must have killed 30 million Russians during his reign of terror. Khrushchev couldn't even stomach it anymore. He finally wrote him off and disowned him there. Of course, then they dumped Khrushchev in the 60s. But I'll tell you, Fred, that guy killed more people than Hitler and all of the Indian Wars and the Civil War and everything put together.
Right.
Plus all the people that died during, all the Americans that died during Vietnam, Korea, and World War II. You put them all together and it still wouldn't add up to as many as Stalin killed.
Yes.
That guy was a bloodthirsty, murdering bandit, Fred. Joseph Stalin. He's probably on some barbecue pit down in hell right now, just twirling around, swimming in the lake of fire. Okay, Freddie. As you know, Freddie boy, a lot of things have happened here in the city. And of course, one of them being all the potholes. Of course, we get that every year, so that's nothing new. But Fred, the old Republican Party, Eau Claire County Republican Party, has a big caucus coming up this Sunday.
Yes.
And as usual, every 2 years they have elections for the chairman and vice chairman and the secretary and the treasurer. Right now the officers are Harlan Reinders, chairman, Bev Betcher, vice chairman, Judy Hepner, secretary, Mike Griffin, treasurer. And as far as I know, all four of them are running again for re-election. Of course, maybe not. But anyway, if you're a Republican and you send in your dues by February 6th, you need to show up at the caucus this Sunday, Fred. And what time does it start?
2 o'clock.
Yeah, somewhere here in the old newsletter.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock at Sunday, February 16th, down at the Ramada Inn this time, Fred. Now, you sure, is that?
No, it's downtown at the That's where they're having the,
Okay, the newsletter says Ramada Inn. Now, there's
yeah, but it's not
there's
Ramada Inn.
there's a conflict there.
It's gonna be downtown.
Downtown at the Civic Center, isn't it?
Yeah.
Civic Center, the old Civic Center that was given away for 100 grand and some Indian beads and a couple of wild turkeys. The city traded it off to one of the local Indians.
Yeah.
And he gave the city back some beads, and the city got rid of the Civic Center for some beads and a few promises, Fred, and a hearty handshake. And that's where it's going to be this Sunday, Fred, down at the Civic Center downtown. Now, when you get your things crossed like that, that's how things happen, Fred. And half the people end up at the Ramada Inn, and the other half down at it's the Eau Claire downtown Holiday Inn Civic Center. Is it still the Holiday Inn? Right down here, downtown. Right down by the tire factory down here. Right across from City Hall.
Yes.
It's still a Holiday Inn down there? Well, it's in the Civic Center. All right, Freddie. So there it is, 2 o'clock this Sunday.
And we got an election coming up too.
Now, Freddie was talking earlier that there's some kind of primary coming up here in town. If it ain't one thing, it's another. Now there's a primary.
Yes.
Well, what kind of primary is it, Fred?
Well,
Whoops, here it is, Fred, right on the back of the newsletter. Notice correction, the caucus, Sunday, February 16th, Holiday Inn Convention Center downtown. So the 500, 600, 700 of you that have paid your dues in time, get down there and vote. Exercise your right to vote and elect the candidate of your choice to be on the executive committee and delegates to the 3rd District Convention and all that other stuff. All right, now, Freddie, you're saying there's some kind of primary. When is that?
I'm not sure when the primary comes off now. It's usually in February, isn't it, the primary?
Yeah, for those that have contested seats.
I got Harry Berg, James Sires, and Glenn Tamke running against each other, and District 2 and District 4, and Amanda Cook, Andrew Jarzynski, and Janeway Riley and Terry Stanley.
Okay, Fred, here's the ones where there's a primary. Then if there's only 2 people in a district, there won't be a primary.
Right.
If there's 3, there's going to be a runoff.
Yeah.
So here you have it. District 2 for the City Council. Harry Berg, James Sires, and Glenn Tamke will be in a runoff.
James Sires was...
February what? 18th? Primary.
All right, Freddie.
James Sires was opposed to
Tuesday anyway.
the
Okay.
you know what I mean.
Okay, Fred. And then in District 4, you have Amanda Cook, Andrew Jarzynski, Janeway Riley, and Terry Stanley. 4 people running for District 4. So that's quite a heavily contested district.
Janeway Riley was opposed to that, to the building of the place down on the river.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
the barbecue, that barbecue place they're going to build down there.
Yeah. They didn't. They decided not to build it after all.
I think they were going to call it the Hut Pit Barbecue right down there on the river.
Yeah.
Okay, then Freddie, they did have a Canada school board primary, but then Bruce King, one of the incumbents, had to bow out because it was either give up his TV show as a weatherman or be on the city on the school board. You couldn't do both because of a conflict of the election laws. So he's bowed out, so there won't be a primary there. So it looks like school board down in Fall Creek, there's going to be a primary. Richard Knudsen, Joni Zick, and Doug Kranig. And that's about it for the old primaries here this year, Freddie.
Well, they got.
Ain't much on the primary scene this year.
They got in the next Fall Creek. They got 3 people.
All right. They're candidates for trustees: Richard Kunert, Dale Reitz, and Carolyn Sell, and Robert Steitman are all running there. So there must be a primary down there now. Other than that, Fred, there's just a couple of city council districts, number 2 and district number 4. They're going to have a primary to settle that off. So go out there and exercise your right to vote.
James Sires was opposed to the building of that convention center down there.
Oh yeah, which one now?
The one on the river.
Okay, all right. Okay, Freddie, well that takes care of all that nonsense. Now, Fred, I got a couple email messages here on the old internet there, and of course you can see our email address up there, cows@discover-net.net, for those of you who have a computer and email capabilities. There you can write us and ask Fred and I any questions or worldly questions, anything that you need to know or that you want to know. If I can't answer it, Fred will, and if neither one of us can answer it, our trusty dog Spot will be able to answer it. And if Spot can't answer it, Common Man can answer it, and he's been very kind to loan his head to this program. And there he is, the old Common Man there. And if Common can't answer it, Lorraine Lee can. So you can always get your answer somewhere down the line there. Ain't that right, Common? He doesn't say much. He's got his own program, so he's kind of baffled by it as to what to say on this show, Fred.
Yes.
All right, Fred, so it says here, Dear Fred, I like to watch you on the Cow Report. Is that a wig or is that your real hair? Your friend, Sammy R.
Yeah?
He wants to know if that's a wig or if that's your real hair.
I think it's my real hair.
Let's see. All right. Looks real to me. And then the other one is, Dear Fred, are you really sleeping on the show or are you pretending? P.S. Keep up the good work. Mark K.
Mm-hmm.
He wants to know, are you really sleeping or just pretending?
No, I don't sleep.
Okay, well we got that.
On the show anyway.
We got that cleared off. All right, today, Freddie, there are a lot of birthdays today, or actually tomorrow. Since it's so late, we go on the next day, which is Tuesday the 11th. People coming up with birthdays tomorrow. Sidney Sheldon, 80 years old. I think Sidney was director of the Mary Tyler Moore Show, and I think he also had something to do with the Andy Griffith Show with Barney Fife and Little Opie and Aunt Bee.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have Lloyd Benson. He's the one that attacked Dan Quayle in their debate several years ago, and he says, I knew Jack Kennedy, and you're no Jack Kennedy, and all that baloney. Okay, then actor Leslie Nielsen from the Police Story movies, and with O.J. Simpson, and the Police Story, the TV series, and the three Police Story movies. And also, let's see, Tina Louise, actress Tina Louise, Fred, and of course she was on Gilligan's Island.
Yes.
Of course, you ever get out to Hollywood, that's one of your first stops should be to go out there and see Gilligan's Island in the lagoon and see the Professor and Mary Ann and all that other stuff. See who else. Actor Burt Reynolds, Fred, is 61. Of course, you know you like him. Burt Reynolds and Fireball Express and all that baloney. You remember Burt Reynolds married to Lonnie Anderson, and he lives down there in Florida. And he has terrible toupees that he wears. You know what I'm talking about now? Burt Reynolds. And then, of course, you have, let's see, who else do we have here, Fred? Somebody that you might recognize. Well, that's about it, Freddie.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally, Fred, back in 1861, this president-elect departed from Springfield, Illinois for Washington. Who was it?
Lincoln.
Abraham Lincoln. Of course, within 5 years, he was dead. All right, Freddie boy. Other than that, boy, oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about. Of course, they're down in Madison deciding how much they're going to charge us down there. And I had a little news clipping here, Fred, about, well, I noticed where they're going to try and raise the fees again for fishing and hunting licenses. And I'm sure all of you hunters and fishermen and fisherwomen out there are glad to hear that. That's just what you wanted to do, was give the state down there some more of your hard-earned tax dollars. Here it is. Hunting and fishing fee rise is backed. Fishing and hunting fee increases that the DNR says can save game wardens' jobs has the support of the legislative committee. Ain't that nice, Fred? We're going to keep those old tax dollars flowing down there. Of course, they don't call these taxes, but you just try and get around going out there and hunting or fishing this year and see if it ain't a tax and see what happens to you if you get caught. You get a big old fine, which is another tax. Just like when you go speeding. First of all, you got to pay the tax to have a driver's license, a driving permit or driver's license in your billfold. You have to pay for that. Then you have to pay for a license plate, which is another tax. And they tend to raise those from time to time. Those are taxes, and if you don't believe they're not taxes, try and go around driving around without a driver's license or license plates on your car and see what happens to you. Then you'll find out real quick that not only are those taxes, but the big old $150, $200, $300 fine, they gives you another tax on top of it. To keep this old bureaucracy, this political boondoggle rolling down there in Madison, you got to keep the money flowing down there so that they can figure out ways to spend it. So back to this here deal, Freddie boy. The DNR request was endorsed 9-1 Wednesday by members, that was last Wednesday, February 5th, by members of the Assembly and Senate Natural Resources Committees. So Fred, they're hand in glove, Republicans, Democrats, down there raising our taxes. And like some politicians, some people say they used to say there ain't a dime's worth of difference between Democrats and Republicans. Now because of inflation, it's down to there isn't a penny's worth of difference between them, especially when it comes to raising taxes, fees, and other things, so that they call them fees, so they can get around saying that they kept their promise and didn't raise your taxes. Here, you want a drink there? There you go. Tell you, Freddie has to have his drink too, you know. All right. So here's the deal, Freddie. Next time you go fishing or get a license, they want to jack it up there. Another tax here includes raising the Wisconsin residential annual fishing license. It's annual, so it's a tax, from 12 up to 14, and the annual hunting fee from 18 up to 20. They say the increases would provide an extra $6.1 million next year, Fred. Isn't that nice? They are constantly looking for ways to raise more money to keep their padded bureaucracy going down there, Fred, and keep their lavish lifestyles going. These guys live like kings and queens down there in the state assembly and the state Senate down there, Fred. They're pampered, and they've got these cushy expense accounts and lavish insurance and retirement programs and you name it, Fred. They got aides and aides on assistant to the assistants, and they've got all kinds of little deals down there going on, Fred. And they got their own little booklet, Fred, that tells them all the different deals they got going for them down there. That the average Joe Dokes and Susie Dokes up here in the boondocks here, and up here where they laugh at us down there in Madison, they think we're a bunch of local yokels up here just to be ripped off and fleeced of our hard-earned dollars. They're constantly padding their own pockets and putting more money in their own pockets and figuring out different kinds of angles and trips to here and there and around the world, and all kinds of little deals here and there, and $50,000, $75,000 kickback schemes for their assistants to the assistants and all that. And some of that money trickles back right to the assemblymen and the senators' pockets in kickback schemes. And I'm telling you, Fred, it's just one thing on top of another. Specials this and specials that and special meals, and I'm telling you, they stay up late at night, Fred, just figuring out ways where they're going to pat each other on the back, whether they're Republican and Democrat, and keep lining their pockets and raising their salaries and padding their retirement plans. And it's just amazing what they come up with, Fred. And then they got the nerve to come up here to the boondocks once in a while and tell us what a great job they're doing and how they're keeping our taxes down. It's one of the biggest bureaucracies in the world. And you can figure out why. We're the second highest tax state in the nation, Fred. Only New York State has higher taxes than Wisconsin. So there they are at work again, raising your taxes. Of course, they call it fees to hide it, but it's right there hunting fishing fee rise back. And so they're going to scrape up another $6 million worth of your hard-earned dollars, Freddie boy. Isn't it amazing? It's just amazing the way they can do those things. Now, if you want to get involved to stop some of that hanky-panky on the local level, city council boards and commissions. Over 150 city residents now serve on boards and commissions appointed by the city council. No special expertise is needed for most committees. Only a sincere interest in working together with others to help the city council address the needs of our community. Existing committees include affirmative action, building code, cable television, advisory. Now that's one you ought to get on, that old cable television advisory, because they're going to be coming up for renewal on their franchise fees very, very quick here, Fred. And instead of just throwing in the towel, what they need to do is say, we're going to bump you guys right out, we're going to send you guys right out of town unless you get your fees in line with some of the other fees and start giving us more programming, better programming, more bang for our buck here, Fred. Right now you got a monopoly. You only got one cable system in town. It's kind of like the electric. You only got one electric company, so no competition. So what's to their advantage to lower the rates and compete when there's nobody to compete against? They need to bring 2 or 3 cable companies here into town. The city's still going to get the franchise fees into the general budget, whether there's 5 cable companies competing or whether there's 1 or 2. They should have at least 2 to keep competition down. Give us a choice out there. Let us have cable company A and cable company B. Right now we just have Time Warner, the socialistic monopoly. Give us Time Warner and Liberty and give us 2 or 3 there, and then they'll compete. They'll give us 100 channels instead of 30 channels or whatever they're giving us now for the same price and probably even less. So you need to get on these committees here. And how do you do it? There's all kinds of committees. Zoning Board of Appeals, Waterways and Parks Commission, Transit Commission, Utilities Appeals Board, Senior Center Board, Special Assessments Deferment, Restaurant Review Board, Redevelopment Authority. You need to get on these and so that you can get involved in city government and have your voice heard. If you just continue to let the liberals and the socialists and the big spenders and the tax and hikers and the big talkers, the big wheelers and dealers and the insiders, if you let them continue to control all these committees, then you're going to continue to get big tax hikes. So get on those committees and then you won't have to worry about it. We better take a call here. Go ahead, caller, you're on the old air.
All right. Hey, Chuck, I was wondering, did you hear what happened in the OJ case today?
Yeah, I guess they awarded the Goldmans and the Simpsons $25 million.
Yeah, $12.5 million apiece. Do you think that's really just for it? He already has to pay $8.5 million.
Well, it just what would happen if, say, you have a daughter and somebody slit their throat and they won the criminal case?
Well, they didn't win the criminal case. This is the civil case.
Right. OJ won the criminal case because he spent millions of dollars on a so-called dream team, and there's supposedly maybe some people are saying there could be some jury tampering. But anyway, he won the criminal case, so I guess the punishment now is going to come in the civil case and bust him financially. But he's still walking after taking 2 people's lives, and so he got off. What's 25 million he'll give? He'd rather have that than be in prison or be on death row right now, where he should be. He's on death row. So 25 million to him, he can pay that off in maybe 5 years of royalties from all of his movies and TV and signing autographs and stuff and that, and then have gravy the rest of his life. So it's a small price to pay for him not to be on death row.
But still, he doesn't have what is that? 25 and 8.5. What is that? $33.5 million. He doesn't have that, and legally you can't totally break a person like that. I mean,
well, I guess his mansion, his $8 million mansion, is tied up in some kind of trust, so they can't get to that. So all they can get to is what they say his future earnings are. He doesn't have much in the present right now, so they're looking at what he can generate in the future off of his name and his likeness, and the movies, the police story movies he's in, he still gets royalties from those, and video sales, and all kinds of different, his autograph on his football cards and stuff like that. They conservatively estimate that that'll be worth about $2 to $3 million a year. So at the tops, 10 years from now, he's going to have it all. He'll have the gold was paid off. He's not on death row. So, you know, for slitting two people's throats and watching them flop around like a couple of fish, blood squirting everywhere, the guy got off pretty light. All right, Freddie boy. Now, Roy. And I'm talking to Roy Rogers Hoff, and he has a long and checkered past. And on one side of his family is Hopalong Cassidy, on the other side is Sitting Bull, and on the third side is Trigger. And I'll tell you, that's a long, long past that he's been trying to live down all these years. But Roy's going to try and get a close-up of this, and then I'm going to ask you folks out there, what is wrong with this headline? Can you get a, well, Roy, maybe you can't get a close-up. Of course, you know, Roy's been doing this for how long now, Fred?
Yeah.
30, 35 years? How long we been on the show together?
100 years.
I thought it was something like that. How else would you know how to know when Abraham Lincoln was born unless you were there? Okay. I ask you, what is wrong with that headline? County looks for best way to spend $3 million. What in the world is wrong with that headline, Fred?
I don't know.
I'll tell you, I've lived up here in Illinois or in Wisconsin for what, going on about 12 years now, Fred. And you guys are so inundated with taxes and fees and special assessments and special assessment this and tax and fee that. You guys are so immersed in it that you've lost your way. What, you want to know what's wrong with that headline, Fred?
Go ahead.
What gives them bums the right to do anything with that $3 million?
Yeah.
They need to give it back to the taxpayers they stole it off of. That's what's wrong with that headline. Roy's going to give us a close-up again there. Well, he doesn't have to give any more close-up than that, but now he's cut off my head. And, of course, we forgot to bring this edition of the Loyal Order of the Raccoons to order, Fred. Is there any new business?
No. No new business.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, now, we've made Betty an honorary member, right? We took care of that. And Lorraine Lee's an honorary member.
Yes.
So that's that's old business, but there's no new business?
I don't think so.
All right. It says here, county looks for best way to spend $3 million. New panel in charge of ideas for money from 2 sales. Now that's their first mistake, is handing over this $3 million to a bunch of big spending liberals, Fred, because they're just going to spend it. Give it back to the taxpayers you stole it off of. Once the last I is dotted and the last T is crossed, the Eau Claire County Board expects to have about $3 million in revenue from the sale of the former 7 Mile Creek landfill and the Center of Care. So they're realizing about $3 million cash extra, Fred. With that in mind, the board voted unanimously Tuesday to create a special committee to study how that money can best be spent. Why couldn't they just set up a committee on the best way to give it back to the taxpayers that they fleeced it off of all these years, running those losing enterprises? And the Center of Care was a losing enterprise. And that landfill wasn't making any big bucks either, was it, Freddie?
No.
All right, there you have it.
If they had built one that would have burned the stuff, they could have helped people and wouldn't take up much. They burned off the stuff, the garbage.
Fred, I remember studying a system back in the early 1970s for compacting garbage pressing it like the little compactors people have in their homes to compact their garbage into to compact it into a cube, and then burning it. And that landfill out there would have lasted another 100 years if they'd have started doing that back in the 70s.
Right.
Compacting that stuff down and getting the tires out of the garbage flow many years ago, instead of dumping tires into, there's probably who knows how many hundreds of thousands of tires in that landfill. And that's barrels of oil down the drain. They're just sitting there in the landfill, and that stuff ain't going to decay. How many years is it going to take for a tire to decay when there's buried down there where there's no oxygen for it to decay? Wastefulness. Just simple wastefulness, Fred. But now, they're so short-sighted here, instead of just taking that money and giving it back to the taxpayers, they're going to blow it, Fred. And so they call this committee the Select Committee on Fiscal Planning. And they've got till August 19th to recommend short and long-range projects for which the $3 million might be used. The committee's 5 members will be chosen by Ludwigson from among the 29 county board supervisors. Well, they've already picked the committee, and they got at least 2 big spending liberals on that committee, Fred. They're not going to give it back to the taxpayers. They fleeced it all. They're going to blow it on some stupid socialistic idea, Fred, and get us into some other boondoggle. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, can I talk to you about prohibition of marijuana for, let's say, health reasons?
What do you mean prohibition? It's prohibited now.
Prohibited.
It's been prohibited since, what, the 30s? So what do you mean? For health reasons, what kind of health reasons? Evidently, that guy's been smoking something, Fred. All right, Freddie, what do you got there? Give me one of them shorties. Give me a 25-cent shorty there, Fred, and serve it up quick.
Yeah. Pentagon drags its feet to keep porn in military stores. And the Family Research Council Military Readiness Project Director, Lieutenant Colonel Robert McGinnis, has criticized the Pentagon for not following the law signed by President Clinton 3 months ago for banning the sale or rental of sexually explicit written or videotape material.
Hello?
On the home, on the property under the jurisdiction of the Department of Defense. In other words, they're not following the law.
Hello? Are you still there? Well, you'll have to call back. Okay, Freddie, well, we got to get something really serious here. Oh, yeah, I remember now. Now I know what's going on out there. Sometimes you get your signals crossed, but I got the headline here. Now, Roy, you're going to have to get a close-up on this again because I want the 10,000 viewers to take a good close look at this here picture. Because this guy here now says that he's quit playing around. I know that guy's face. I'm telling you, I've seen that guy. That's the official drawing of the Mad Bomber here in Eau Claire, and now he's said that he's tired of fooling around with the phony bombs, and he's going after the real thing. Now, doesn't this look like Unabomber? Doesn't that guy, the way he's dressed and stuff, the sunglasses and the hat and the hood over there, doesn't he look almost like the Unabomber, that Ted Kaczynski that they finally rounded up out there in that cabin? Well, this guy here finally gave a protracted voice on the, he called the emergency center here in town a little while back, and he gave his voice there, and of course he was on just long enough to give his voice. He sounded like that he was on either had been drinking or he'd been medicated, Fred. His voice didn't sound exactly 100%. But I listened to that voice several times, and a lot of people, thousands of people think they've heard that voice. But the voice sounds familiar, but it doesn't go with his face. This face here, I've seen this guy in town before. He's got the narrow, slender face, kind of a long, narrow nose, kind of high cheekbones, narrow lips. I've seen this guy around town before. Probably several of you had, especially around payphones, because that's where he makes his calls from. But one of his most recent acts was shooting up 20 businesses with a .22 rifle or revolver going around. He shot up several businesses, Culligan and American Materials, and, well, 20 different businesses, and of course no one was injured, but he's kind of elevated. He's went up one more step, Fred. And this is not somebody that is a rabid anti-abortionist or anti-pornography person, because he's made a couple calls to that, but my theory is he's done that to throw people off the track. What he really is he's an environmental terrorist, and he's on the left, he's not on the right. He's tied in some way with either Chippewa Valley Technical College or the university. His calls and threats and phony bombs started in September of '95, right after school started for the fall, or right around the time Votech, and then it dwindled off last summer to hardly anything. Then it picked up again here in September. So he's connected with the university. He's probably around 30. He's kind of a slender build, about 6 foot tall, around 30 years old. Narrow lips, short hair. He wears baseball caps. He could be somebody that hangs around the bars. He sounded like he'd been drinking the night that he called into the police station down there, and his voice is on 831-2000, and then select 1015 on the leader telegram. Now Roy's got something there that he's going to play, and it'll give you an idea of his voice. I think Roy's got a voice there. So go ahead and play that, Roy boy.
Sick of the lies and the fake bombs. There won't be any more fakes.
There won't be any more fakes?
No. So I'm learning over the internet how to make real-time delayed devices. Your partner's probably getting a call out now, so I have to go. But there will be no more fakes.
All right, now, we've made offers to the Mad Bomber to call the show here and talk to us, or contact me off the air by, I gave my home number out once, and as far as I know, my phone ain't bugged. But if you'd like to meet and talk about doing a surrender, I'll meet with you anywhere, anytime, and we can negotiate a surrender with the FBI, and we can stop this thing here before somebody does actually get hurt or killed. Because once you step over that line, you won't get the death penalty, but you'll probably be doing 40, 50, 75 years in prison. Right now you can do some kind of negotiations and possibly get this thing resolved with probation and maybe a year in jail. But if you step over that line and people get hurt or killed, then you've stepped over the line for good. And you're liable to be shot, blown away in a shootout, or you're liable to blow yourself up making one of these internet bombs. So now's the time to give it up. I think you've made your statement. It looks like you want to be Ted Kaczynski #2. You know, Ted Kaczynski, he's not going to ever see the light of day again. The rest of his life he's going to be in prison. And that's where you'll be if you don't give up this nonsense and call it quits. Probably the best thing you can do if you don't want to give up is just disappear and leave this town and never come back. But the way it sounds right now, there's 14 FBI agents and several local police involved in tracking you down. So you need to, from what I understand, you tried to call in earlier tonight on the program here, so we're going to try and leave a line open for you to call in there and call back in and tell us what's going on. Tell us why you're doing this. We'll give you a couple minutes if you want to tell the viewers here what's happening, and we can just go from there. So if we got a call on there now, Roy. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yes, I'd like to thank you, Investigator Chuck, for showing us all that the bomber is a left-winger. And I was just wondering, what is the motivation between, for all your redneck stances? Were you ever slapped around or made to do backflips when you were younger?
Okay, Fred, well, there's another typical left-wing lost soul out there in the left wing, and in the dwindling ranks of the socialists and communists out there, attacking me and calling me a right-winger. But I'll tell you, some of my views will stand up to any of the socialist views any day. And we only give sound advice here on this program, Fred. in the 30, 35 years we've been doing this show. And so we apologize for the leftists that get through and don't know what they're talking about. Somebody has to stand up and stand for what's right, Fred. And I know you've been doing that now for 100, 150 years, and we're glad that you've been doing that, Fred. So what do you got there before we take another call?
Well, here Planned Parenthood ad reflects founders' philosophy. The seat of the ad, the text of the ad says, babies are loud, smelly, and expensive. Unless you want one, we exist to make sure babies are born, planned, and wanted. To discuss birth control or plan a pregnancy, call us today.
Well, who put that ad out?
Planned Parenthood.
Are they talking about babies being loud and smelly?
Yeah.
Huh. That's amazing. All right. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hey, yeah, how's it going?
All right.
Fred, do you think babies are loud and smelly?
No.
Oh.
Fred, you had a couple of babies.
It's God's gift from heaven.
Okay. About this bomber, I think they need to put more cops and more FBI agents to get this dumb jack butthead.
Well, he's cost thousands of dollars and scared a lot of people. It's probably getting into the hundreds of thousands of dollars just in the police manpower to keep working on this. But the trouble is, he makes his phone calls from pay phones, and he's smart enough not to stay on the line more than a couple minutes. Like if you've listened to that call that he called in, that thousands of people listen to now, and it's the number again. If you want to listen to it, it's still on there. I listened to it several times, and it's 831-2000, and then you wait for the advertising, and then you go to selection 1015, and you can hear the voice. And he's done 357 bomb threats since September 1st, 1995, and only a couple of them have been to abortion clinics or to pornography. So that tells me of almost over 350 calls for bombs, and only 4 or 5 of them been anything to do with abortion clinics. That's not what he's what he's after. That was just to send the investigators down a blind alley there in a dead end. He's got some, just like Ted Kaczynski was into this big global environmental technology thing. I think this guy here is more into that, and probably something to do with the ozone or something. But he's going to step over that line pretty soon, and somebody's going to get hurt or killed, and then he's going to be hunted down like a rabid wolf and blown away.
Don't you think this guy's just a wacko, though? Do you think he really has a purpose, or he's just a wacko?
Well, what do you think about Ted Kaczynski? He did it for, what, 15, 20 years before he got caught?
I think he was just a wacko, too.
Right, but if you listen to this guy's voice, it sounds like he's either on medication or he was drinking the night he went out and shot up the city.
Oh, he's smoking weed.
But the thing is now, there's a guy running around with a semi-automatic pistol robbing gas stations and stuff over the weekend, and hopefully it ain't this same guy. But he's saying now there's not going to be any more fakes, that he's learning on the internet how to make the real thing, and of course all you have to do is type in the word bomb on one of them search engines and you get thousands of references on how to make all kinds of explosives and stuff. So it's pretty easy for him to go that direction.
I tell you, I'd like to see this guy when I'm downtown or something. I'd jump out.
I've seen the guy. I've seen him walking around town. When you look at that face, I'm telling you, I've seen the guy.
I think the city really needs to get together, and anytime you think you see this guy, call him.
Well, as a matter of fact, at one time the local authorities thought he called into the show, and I provided them with a tape of the show. And but after hearing this guy's voice, it doesn't sound like the same guy that called into the show. So we're hoping that he'll call into the show and tell us what his angle is. So we're going to let you go so he can hopefully get through tonight and tell us where he's coming from and where he wants to go, and what this is all about for the last close to 1.5 years now. Okay, Freddie, you got that paragraph ready. You got that
Yes.
shorty there. Okay.
New comic book ridicules clergy and Christians. The pages of the DC Vertigo comic book are the latest place Christians are coming under attack. Preacher is the title of a new publication by a well-known comic book, and as the name implies, its main character is a pastor, but that's where the connection to Bible or biblical beliefs end.
Well, that's amazing, Fred. In layman's terms, what does that all mean?
Well, they're going after the Christians.
Well, you read the whole book. You should have.
I didn't read the book.
You've read the whole Bible, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well, you should have known that was going to happen when you got involved and became a Christian. It's not all peaches and cream, Fred. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi. Hold on. I was just wondering, do you actually think this bomber guy's actually going to do anything? And if he does, do you think he'll target the campus at all?
Well, you know, it seems to me like he hasn't done too many bomb threats on any campus dorms or any of the campus buildings or anything. It's been like everything else, government buildings, schools, private buildings. He's called from Milwaukee to St. Paul, but he uses mainly 800 numbers. So this has kind of been his base of operations, but it tells me why I think he's involved with the university or with the Votech is it dwindled down to almost nothing during the summer months, and then it picked up again. And it didn't start till September of '95. And then it dwindled down in the summer of '96, and then it's picked up again here since school started September again. So I think he's in some way related to one of the local universities, either here in Menominee or maybe even as far as River Falls, but he's from this area and he's using this as his base. He's put some pipe bombs. He could very well be from the southwest side of town because that's where a couple pipe bombs actually were exploded. And he shot up the American Materials buildings over on that, which is on the southwest part of town, over by Shawtown, so he could very well live in that area. And but I think the FBI is closing in on him. They've got several suspects, and he should let himself get caught and plead some kind of insanity or do something before he.
Well, let's hope so.
Before he actually does kill somebody, because that's when he actually has stepped over the line and there's no return. But hopefully he won't target the university. But you know, the students out there, there's 11,000 of you students, and a lot of you are watching tonight. You need to look at that picture again and study that voice and start thinking, does this guy, is he in my class? Is he in my gym class? Is he in computer? Start checking out the computer areas. The guy's reading the internet somewhere. Either he's hooked up to DiscoverNet or StarNet or EDP, or he's hooked into the university internet system or the Votech through the internet there. Somebody hangs around maybe the library, he's studying, he's looking up stuff on bombs. So start being vigilant and study that picture again. Listen to that voice a few more times on there and call it. The voice will be on there for a little while longer. And that number once again is 831-2000. That's the leader line, and the selection is 1015, and you can listen to the voice several times. And that will help you to get this thing taken care of. So they know he's male, he's white, he's about 5'10" to 6 foot tall, weighs about 170 pounds, late 20s to early 30s. His hair is dark, short, and neat. He's got kind of a slender face, he's got narrow lips, kind of a slender nose. He's probably going to be wearing a white pullover type hooded sweatshirt, sunglasses, and stocking cap. He's going to be hitting payphones. Could be university, the union payphones there, or any payphone anywhere here in town. You see somebody suspicious hanging around a payphone, call 911 right away and say, hey, I just saw somebody suspicious using the payphone. If he can't use the payphones, it's going to force him to use his own home phone or a friend's phone, and then that's going to flush him out a little more. So all I can say is start checking around in computer science and in environmental science, and in those areas there. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Chuck, about this Unibar Mad Bomber, or whatever they call him.
Well, doesn't he look like the Unabomber? It's almost a spitting image of the picture we saw plattered all over radio, TV, and, well, you didn't see much on the radio, but TV and newspapers for months. This is the only picture they had of the Unabomber until they nailed him in that little cabin.
Well, you know, Chuck, really honestly, that, you know, that could be any one of us walking around, you know, that's not a very telling picture, or I mean, how do authorities think that we're going to catch this guy?
Well, one thing, they got a voice now. They got a voice to go with that picture. There he is, a bomb threat suspect. And they've got the voice to go with that picture there.
Okay, so what they're saying is they're looking for a guy that's from 5'10" to 6 foot tall, could, okay, you got it up on the screen now, could weigh anywhere from 160 to 170 pounds, and could be anywhere from 18 to 35 years old. So that's basically what you're saying by your little description here, isn't it?
Dark, short, neat hair, so that's gonna.
Why did they put the hood on him then?
Because that's the way he's been seen at payphones, where he makes his quick call for the bomb threat, and then he leaves real quick.
What if I was this guy phoning for pizza?
Well, actually, he's been phoning in 357 bomb threats since September 1st, 1995. And the FBI now is getting a little bit nervous because he did step over that line there from fake bombs and a few pipe bombs into shooting up 20 Eau Claire businesses on right at the first part of February there. I think it was February 1st. Saturday night, February 1st. So it's gotten to, he used a .22 caliber handgun on those Saturday night shootings around town. And he's left 5 bomb devices, including 3 that were detonated on Eau Claire's south side and 2 others that didn't explode. And he's left 49 fake devices in Chippewa Falls and Eau Claire. So this is his base of operations. We have a terrorist in our midst. And he's going to continue to terrorize until he's caught or blown away or gives up or commits suicide. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I was wondering if you knew if all the pipe bombs, like in the last year or so, were associated with the same guy.
Well, the FBI seems to think so, from their modus operandi of the way the guy calls in and what he says, and the way he's doing it. They've narrowed out the high school kids that are doing their little pranks. They're skipping school and making their little bomb threats and all that. So they've narrowed all that stuff out, cut away all that stuff, and they came up with 357 bomb threats that he has made around the country, around most of Wisconsin, or mostly in western Wisconsin, a few to Milwaukee, a couple to St. Paul, but most of it's been centered in the Eau Claire, Chippewa Falls, Altoona, Elk Mound area, right in this area, this 100,000 metropolitan area that we live in here. And so he's kind of, it's starting to get where people are getting a little on edge, because now he's saying, hey, I've quit messing around and now I'm going to go stepping over the line, and I'm going to start making real bombs. There won't be any more fakes. Now, evidently, he's probably been blamed for some calls and bombs that he didn't make. And so that's made him a little bit upset there, because he said he's tired of the lies.
Yeah, I couldn't understand that when I listened to the call myself, what the lies exactly were.
It's probably that he's been accused of some of the things that he hasn't done. So now he's gonna set his own trademark by actually blowing up something a little bit bigger than a pipe bomb, and that's why he's studying the internet. So that's why you need to be watch a little closer for somebody that's involved in. Another thing is, down there at the Army-Navy surplus store, the people that own that need to be keeping a little better track of who they're dealing with there. He's probably went in there looking for stuff. He could be going down to some of the surplus sales down at Fort McCoy. He could be, he's definitely hooked in with computers somewhere. So start being a little more watchful of who you're seeing hanging around in these various areas. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
All right. Where on the internet can one find how to make these bombs? I've surfed the net quite a bit, actually, and
Have you got search engines like Yahoo?
Huh?
Search engines?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, go to a search engine like Yahoo or any of them.
Yahoo?
Yahoo or web crawler, any of those search engines on the internet.
Yeah, web crawler.
Okay, you type in the word bomb or bomb making or bombs, B-O-M-B-S, or explosives, and you'll find thousands of references. There's just thousands of them out there. The Anarchist Cookbook has been on the internet for years. It tells you how to make all kinds of bombs, and pipe bombs and stuff. So it's if that's what you're into, you can learn it real quick, and evidently he's discovered the internet now, and he's gonna...
Well, it's not that I'm into it or anything, but do you think that's really responsible as a community to have people nutcases like this to...
Well, the internet is out there. The internet's not something you can just grab and grab a hold of. It's something. It's out there in Netherlands. It's something it's just out there, and there's millions of people all over the world on the internet. They're putting information uploading onto the internet, and they're downloading information off the internet. So it's and the military and governments and colleges. There's just millions of people that are in this thing, and it could very well be what's talked about in the Book of Revelations, Fred, about the beast, because this is something out there that's just it's there, but it's not there, and it's something that you can plug into and get information off of, and it's just amazing how this thing has grown by leaps and bounds, and millions upon millions of people are involved in it, and so like I say, you can just find a search engine on the internet. There's dozens of them, and you can type in. People use those to do research for term papers and stuff. So you just type a subject word in there, and you can find thousands of references, news articles, and what have you. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Hi, it was real interesting hearing about all the bomb stuff. I saw something on the news tonight about Veterans Administration down in McCoy, Fort McCoy down there, talking about no more benefits for non-service related injuries. I want to know if you had heard any more about it, and would Fort Snelling over by the cities maybe have the same thing going on? They're just cut at I think they said the end of this next month, cutting all the benefits for non-service related injuries, and I know there's a whole lot of veterans out there that depend on these services just to make it through, unless you've got a really, really good insurance plan. And
okay, Fred, you're a veteran now. You're not able to get into some of the veterans hospitals now, are you?
Right. I don't have any service-connected disability, so legally I'm not.
So that's already in effect. Maybe they're just tightening down on it even more.
Okay, well, thanks a lot.
Yeah, because Fred is a veteran. He knows veterans that have been able to take advantage of the veterans hospitals, and that's basically where you go, Fred. If you're a veteran and you're sick, you go to the veterans hospital. But not everybody gets served there. There's still millions of veterans out there that aren't able to use those services. Isn't that correct, Fred?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, Chuck, I'm really interested in your line of work. How would I go about being the next Chuck Lee?
Well, I'll tell you.
Or Fred, for that matter.
Well,
I would love to sit and read the paper on TV.
I'll tell you, it takes many, many years of practice to be able to read a paper on TV. And Fred's got what now, 20, 25 years of doing it? And it's not just anybody that can get up here and thumb through the papers and read them over the old TV there. It takes many, many years of practice. So what you need to do is go home and sit in front of the TV and read a paper like this and just practice looking into the TV. And you can even set up a closed circuit camera if you got your own video camera, and you can look at yourself on TV reading the newspaper. But remember now, the Mad Bomber's out there. He's the Unabomber #2. Ted Kaczynski's has been captured, so now it's up to this guy to take Ted's place, and it's up to all of us to do our duty and help him retire. Take one more call, and that's it. Go ahead, caller. You got about 30 seconds.
I just wanted to say that
Are you there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, hey, I really like your guys' show.
Well, thank you. We're glad to hear it. You're just one of many, many thousands of people that rely on this show for information and for truth, justice, and the American way. And we thank you very much for tuning in tonight. And we'll see you right here on the old Cow Report next time. So watch your newspaper, TV guys, and all that for the next time we're on live. Adios, amigos, and amigas.
We're going to be on Wednesday at 9 o'clock, the Conservative Corner.
Who is?
The Conservative Corner.
Who you having on there?
Well, I'm not sure yet, but I think we're going to have a guest.
Okay, Roy.
Look at the lies and the fake bombs. There won't be any more fakes.
There won't be any more fake ones?
No, because I'm learning over the internet how to make real-time delayed devices. Your partner's probably getting a call out now, so I have to go, but there will be no more fakes.
If you have any clue